Welcome back to the channel. My name is David Osuji, your psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Today, we are talking about acceptance. By the end of this video, you will see how reaching acceptance when things don't go your way can save you a lot of mental stress and anguish. Have you ever been so sure that you find a way right up until reality hits you hard? Let me tell you about a time I learned this lesson the hard way. It was late in my nursing school journey, and I had one final exam left in my mental health rotation, an exam that would decide if I could move forward with the rest of my class. The stakes were high. To make matters worse, I was working night shifts at Walgreens, which left me super tired all the time. I kept telling myself, though, you got this, which I did. I've passed plenty other classes while I was working night shift, so I didn't have any reason to be concerned. I made flashcards, which typically I'll use my flashcards in between customers. While I'm checking them out, I'll look at the flashcards and try to memorize them. And then later I'll use Quizlets to practice. But every day after work, I was wiped out. I kept saying, I'll study better tomorrow. But then when tomorrow came, I was too tired to focus, and I find another reason not to really dig into the exam material. There was always something. Either I was too tired or too distracted with other responsibilities. I remember 2 days before the exam, as the deadline got closer, I felt this urgency to get started. But what did I do when I had a chance to really buckle down and dig into the material? Well, it wasn't what you'd expect. I sat down to rest for a little bit, and I played some FIFA. And then before I looked up, it was too late to study. And so I played more FIFA. The next day, I started to get that feeling in my chest as my heart raced, and that sense of impending doom started to creep in while I looked at the calendar, how much time I had left, and how much exam material I had not really dug into. Panic was creeping in. That night, desperation took over. I chugged this energy drink called Venom, which made me jittery and wired, yet my eyes felt like they had bricks tied to them. I stayed up the entire night studying, shaking because that energy drink had me wired, and my eyes were bloodshot red, and I was cramming as much as I can as the clock just kept ticking and ticking and ticking. I only had a few hours left, and the more I tried to cram, the less it seemed I was able to retain. By the time I was walking into the exam room the next morning, I felt my heart just pounding against my chest. My hands were shaky. I felt clammy, tight knots in my stomach. Just all the anxiety I was ignoring hit me all at once. The strangest thing happened, though. As I sat in that exam room answering questions, I started to feel, okay, I recognize some of this material. I knew a lot of the answers. And after, when I talked to some of the students, we seemed to struggle with the same answers. This made me feel really good. There was a part of me that was hopeful that maybe I guessed good enough to pass. Then the results came. I failed. No miracle had happened. I felt crushed, man. The failure hit me hard. I remember I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't bring myself to tell my family because I let the family down. I was frustrated and angry at myself for not starting to study sooner. I kept replaying it in my head over and over and asking myself, why didn't you just start studying on time? This agonizing loop played over and over in my head. Then something clicked. I realized I had a choice. I could keep beating myself up, or I could accept the failure and move on. At first, accepting the failure was hard, but it also made me feel better when I finally arrived at acceptance. Accepting the failure didn't mean I was okay with it. I wasn't, because the consequences were heavy. But I learned that accepting reality is about letting go of the things you cannot control and focusing on what to do next. That moment was a turning point in my life. Failing was tough, but learning how to move forward was even tougher, and it taught me resilience. And guess what? After that experience, I made sure to plan better when it came to balancing work and school. I started to study a lot earlier. I had a better routine. I was a lot more structured. I knew life would always get in the way. Emergencies will always happen. Distractions will always happen. But if you plan better, you can mitigate the consequences of those things. Even now, when things don't go as planned, I remember this lesson. Instead of stressing out about what went wrong, I try to focus on what I learned from the experience and what I can do next. Acceptance helps me move past the failure radically quickly because think about it. If you cannot change the past because time keeps moving forward, you will naturally get to acceptance eventually because the passage of time makes the memory of the failure fade and the consequences become a lot more tolerable. So, knowing this, you can just skip ahead in the process and get to acceptance as soon as possible because you're going to get there eventually. So, you might as well save yourself the time and the stress. Of course, this is not going to be easy the first time you try it, but as with all things, it gets easier the more you practice it. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of the stress and focusing on what to do next. Acceptance means looking at the experience through the lens of lessons learned and what not to do again versus regret over what I wish I had done. That's a subtle difference, but it is a huge difference. Acceptance means choosing peace of mind over stress. And that is how you learn and grow and keep moving forward, especially when things don't go your way. That's all I got for you today, folks. If this message has been beneficial to you, like and subscribe and share it with someone who you think will benefit from the message. I'll see you in the next video.